As all electronic devices powered on, Security Raptor whipped out his gun and started wildly pulling the trigger, but in front of Polaris. Bullets were like confetti. Then Mouth Sister spoke up, and the sonic wave spread through the entire room. Despite covering their ears, it was useless. They knelt. Polaris seized the chance to disarm everyone and secured the bank's ground floor easily. The team worked seamlessly. Mouth Sister locked everyone in a room while Unique Star used their powers to make the CEO confess years of secrets. With mutant exploitation evidence, three quickly headed to the basement. Polaris forcefully opened the elevator door to the underground vault. Up next was Rebecca's big performance. Just flipped the vault upside down, except she couldn't even budge it because of its thickness. It was way beyond her strength. After a few failed attempts, Andy had a light bulb moment and told Rebecca to think back on her lab experience. A tsunami of negative emotions hit: pain, anger, loneliness, despair. She exploded. She gathered all her frustration in her hands, and the space began to shake, sending out strong shockwaves. The trio got blown like dandelions. The vault, unrecognizable. It felt so good to vent. But that was just the beginning of the tragedy. As they prepared to leave, the CEO endless chatter stirred Rebecca's intense dissatisfaction. She shouted that the punishment wasn't enough. Ignoring the pleas, she unleashed her powers, filling the conference room with a storm of space debris. The next second, the whole world seemed to quiet down. "Rebecca, what have you done?" Yet Rebecca felt no remorse, instead grinning sinisterly, while Mouth Sister looked so upset because her fiancé was also in there. Hate seeds took root. On escape, Polaris feigned accusation, making Rebecca explode. She felt like they viewed her merely as a tool, then activated her powers and flipped the car door, driving off. There were some strangely shaped corpses on the street, clearly Rebecca's doing, but soon she had no complaints left. You move your hand, I turn your hand, and just like that, she was locked in a spinning cube. The cube spun relentlessly, disorienting her and preventing her from using her powers, clearly Mouth Sister's trick. Unable to watch, Andy pleaded with Mouth Sister, who advised him to stay out of it. Little did she know Andy had skills. He tore the cube with telekinesis, planning to flee with Rebecca, but regretted it after her words. Because she wanted to kill everyone. Just as Andy tried to stop her, the elevator doors opened, Rebecca spreading her arms. Planning a bloodbath like the bank, Andy used telekinesis to interrupt Rebecca's plans. Unfortunately, he used too much force, causing Rebecca to glide, then hit a pool, instantly dead. To bury a loved one with your own hands, how painful for Andy. She couldn't understand why Rebecca was so obsessed, and Polaris was tortured in the lab and training hall, leaving scarred. The real culprit was the suppression collars and their creators. It was time to end it. This wasn't just ordinary metal. The metal piece morphed in her hands and finally transformed into a headband, marking Polaris' awakening. She became the new Magneto and declared she would use an iron fist to crush all human malice. Polaris led her apprentice Andy to the headquarters of the suppression collars, where the servers looked like a bunch of acrobats. Each one represented the suffering of their kin. Remembering her days being controlled by the collars, Polaris couldn't contain her anger any longer, slowly rising into the air before unleashing her. The suppression collars immediately failed, and the afflicted mutants finally perked up, wearing long lost smiles. Andy wasn't one to be outdone, and with one furious shout, all the servers exploded. In an instant, mutants worldwide ripped off the suppression collars. What Polaris didn't anticipate was that the beneficiaries were not just the innocent, but also the real powerhouse of retaliation. Each one had amazing skills. Some could boil objects, others could teleport them, and some could even blow things up. The trio once killed thousands with this combo. Polaris couldn't fathom Mouth Sister's recruitment of such notorious criminals. When Polaris questioned her, Mouth Sister didn't give a clear answer, but showed her a news clip, and in the end, she was labeled innocent. News anchor proclaimed that mutants were beasts unworthy of life, and Mouth Sister told Polaris that to rebuild a world, one must first destroy it. Obviously, Mouth Sister's ideology contradicts the fleet's intent. If left unchecked, neither humans nor mutants will be at peace. There would be no respite for anyone. To thwart Mouth Sister's plan, Polaris intentionally hurt her arm when no one was watching. She used her wounded arm as an excuse to sneak into the control room, hack the computer's password with her powers, and found Mac's travel logs. She discovered he often visited a bar, so she discreetly contacted her boyfriend, sending him to kidnap Max. Just splitting the trio would delay Mouth Sister's destructive plan, but things didn't go as hoped. Mac's fierce resistance turned the kidnapping plan into an assassination attempt. When Mouth Sister learned of Mac's death, she exploded with rage, ordering the entire base sealed off, determined to fish out the traitor before any act. They quickly traced the breach back to a computer, but little did they know, the so-called traitor was not Polaris but the brainiac, Saji. Hacking the password was a piece of cake for Saji, and since the poison couldn't invade her brain, she couldn't prove her innocence. Thus she became Polaris' scapegoat, effectively talked to death by Mouth Sister's big mouth. Saji's death was like a stone tossed into the ocean, making no waves at all. Seeing Andy's emotionless face made Polaris feel even more. Regretting bringing her to this soulless place, she decided to completely dismantle Mouth's sister's plans.